Mm,
Recording in progress.
nice. Okay, challengers, welcome to another installment of affiliated business and people involved in the challenge. Some of you have already been in contact with Sue in regards to the Dry July, and she is the person that you get in contact with, and I'll let her give an explanation of how you can do that on Dry July if you haven't become a member and if you've not used the portal before. And but first, I'm going to ask Sue to tell a little bit about herself and her business, She Time.
Cool. Thank you so much, Jo. And it's really cool being here in the challenge. I love helping people, so it's right up my alley. So what I mostly do in my business is help people get over their blocks. So we experience things, in childhood, whether it's, a teacher told us we couldn't do something, or a parent or a sibling. And so we create these blocks, and we have what we call 4 universal fears. Will I be enough? Will I be loved? Will I belong? And will I be judged? And when we can look through those filters of our past, we can see where some of those blockages come in today. So I do coaching around that, around the mindset, about, what are we thinking? What is the belief that we have about a certain thing that happened? Mm-hmm. And then I look at, okay, what's the block from that belief? How is it affecting you today? How can we change that belief? And then I come in and clear it out with, we do a tapping session, which eliminates any of the triggers. And then I can do energy, healing with Reiki. So it's really cool what I get to do. I love it. I help people all around the world. And I'm really excited to be here because this means a lot to me, because I know what it's like, going through different stages of my own life, through alcohol at 17, living in Darwin. That was the thing that you did.
Yeah.
It was drinking. So at 17, you pretty much could have called me an alcoholic. It was like, so, and I've had stages in my life of drinking and not drinking. And so, I can really be in there with people and feel what they're going through. There's certainly lots of stuff in my life. So I like to, what I call, sit in the shit pit with people, and get deep, dig in, get to the deeper stuff, so that we can bring, them back into meeting themselves for pretty much the first time, past all the stuff. So that's really what I do in my business.
Yeah. And how did you get to the point where, obviously, what was first? Did it come with Reiki first, or did it come with the other stuff first? And how did you integrate the two?
So what happened was, in 2017, I was having a relationship breakdown, relationship number too many.
Yeah.
And I just went, there has to be, something about this. And, I have to be the common denominator, because I'm in these relationships that keep breaking down. What is it? So when I wasn't, really living fully into my truth, of speaking my truth in relationships, I had poor boundaries, so I had to learn those. But it was the time that I found coaching. Yeah. So I watched 72 hours of Tony Robbins.
Wow.
And went, I need to fix this. Can I fix it? Do I have to throw it? What do I need to do to get this relationship back on track? So I followed everything that he said. After watching these videos, I set a plan, and after 2 weeks, I went, right, you know what? This really isn't working. We need to end this. And that's what happened. And I got into coaching from there. It was really, really cool. So then came the Reiki. But during that journey, the more I got rid of my stuff, and I'm talking trauma, a lot of deep stuff, the more I got rid of that, the more my spiritual abilities were exposed. And I had no idea that I had those things. So and I can do some really cool stuff now, which is really good and exciting for those people that really believe in it. And then I went and studied Reiki. So I found the combination that worked for me to get me through, and now I do that for others. So I love it.
And I don't think people realize the benefits of living a clean life either, and going through trauma. Some of the best healers are people that come from adversity, obviously. And a lot of people I talk to say, well, I'm just doing a course at the moment with nutrition, and there's a woman on there who is not only a fully fledged dietitian, she's also a nutritionist. She's also someone who is working very closely with the fitness industry, and she said the same. She also deals with people with anorexia and food issues, And she said her first job as a naturopath was in a gym. So what she learned was there's naturopath, and then there's the way that people train, and this is what they do, and this is the and that they were hand feeding each other. So now all of a sudden she's got these 3 different careers that mold into one, and it helps her understand the fitness industry, the health industry, but also, you know, all the different things that go with it. Also, let's tap on a little bit about the things you're talking about with trauma and things that we believe in ourselves. I personally have been through the same sort of thing, and it took me a lot of years to figure out that the alcohol consumption was trying to numb the stuff I should have faced. And I think that alcohol is used as a drug to either numb things that are currently stressing someone out, or past traumas, or like you, my father was a footballer who was an alcoholic, and that's all the people did. I'd go to grandpa's house, he'd be drinking, grandma'd be drinking, they'd be fighting. We'd go home, we'd go to the football club, they'd be drinking. Everyone's drinking and smoking. We came from the 70s.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe that we grew up to do. So we all started smoking cigarettes at 12, 13, 14, 15, and we wondered why parents were telling us off because they're doing it. And, you know, they all drank alcohol, and everything was revolved around parties every Saturday night and Sunday, wherever we landed. So I guess it's ingrained in us. And then my father taught me just to drink it away. But the problem was always at the, you know, the answer was never at the end of the bottle. It was within myself. So let's talk about childhood traumas, because some people, if they're giving up alcohol in the next month, that's a crutch of something they feel they need to maybe, you know, have them stop thinking about past trauma or something like that.
Yeah. So if I can take that, you know, it's great that you brought that up. Can we take it as you know, a step deeper?
Yes.
When I look at trauma, and I look at the things that we experience, and we look at alcohol. So if we have those two like that, and we dive a little deeper into those universal fears that I was talking about, it's nothing different in the sense that, so I'll talk about me and smoking. And for me, I smoked for many years. The crutch for that for me was the sense of belonging. So without that, I didn't feel I had somewhere to belong. I noticed that the more that I was disengaged from family, the more I was disengaged from friends, the more I smoked, the more I wanted to belong. I saw myself going to parties, and I saw myself going and hanging out with the smokers. And especially with the changes that were happening, you know, you couldn't smoke in certain places anymore. You started to feel that exclusion. And when I noticed that in me, I went, holy shit, this is more people than just me. And I'm doing this because I need to feel like I belong somewhere. So when I worked on that and I got rid of the smoking, I actually don't have those triggers anymore. I can set my boundaries now really well, but the smoking was just no different to drinking. I needed a sense of belonging, and I got that through my family. So I got taught belonging was smoking. I got taught that belonging was drinking. And the truth was, I was really disengaged from people. I was disengaged from my own self. Part of it kept me, like trauma kept me from engaging with myself. So when I say that, you know, if we think of a memory and we bring it up, what happens is, if we're looking at ourselves in the memory and not being in ourselves, there's a disassociation. So there's a part of, you know, something that's happened in our life where we've disengaged, we've disassociated from ourselves. And so we're running on autopilot. So whatever age that happened, it's likely that we're stunted at that age in that particular thing in our life. So trauma can get really deep, but it's definitely about, you know, one of those 4 things. Will I be loved? Do I feel enough? You know, am I a consistent learner because, and not a doer, because that's going to tell me that, you know, the person then doesn't feel enough, that they've learned enough, and that they can say, you know, well, I feel dumb, you know, and so people don't engage for that. So there's all different reasons why we're doing this, but they're general patterns. And for me, you know, as a trained professional, I get to go in and see those patterns and go, okay, I can, you know, take that apart. I can explain it so you understand it. And then we can, you know, take out those triggers and then instill some really good stuff. And when we can, put the ecology back in, like we're planting the seed and growing a new garden, that's when we don't have the loss. So if we got to take out, say, alcohol or smoking, if we got to take that away from somebody that is used to doing it, because that's what gives them that sense of that hug or that belonging, all of a sudden there's that, you have that freak out that I'm not in control, what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's really important to be putting stuff back in the mind kind of set stuff.
Yep.
It's important to instill new things. So engagement, encouragement, confidence would anchor those sorts of things. So, and I'm happy to do some videos around that. But we have to understand if we're taking something out, we need to put something in.
Yeah. So in the long term, as in what you've just discussed, the way that you can help the challenges is on various levels, whether that be giving something up that they rely on, whether that be, facing themselves, because a lot of it has to do with body image and again, what am I good enough? They're holding on to weight, because the mind is so powerful. You can look in a mirror, and I think body dysmorphia is a massive problem.
Yeah.
And I learned that again in the course recently, that there are some people that just sit on the spectrum, and there are people that either look at themselves really, really super skinny, and they see themselves as big, and then they say big people see themselves the other way, and they're too scared to go the other way. Like it's mind control is affecting people and their image and self-love.
Yeah.
So I find that when we do a challenge like this, and we're doing things like detoxing and giving things up, there is an element of having to look in the mirror at some point, and looking at yourself. How does that affect people when they start opening up that little can of whoop-ass on themselves?
Yeah, look, for me as a coach, I'm always there. I always say to people, it's like doing the gardening. If we're going to pull some weeds, we need to plant some seeds.
Yeah.
It's a trade rather than a give up. When we think of give up, our body contracts, our mind contracts. So if we think about we're trading, there's not that scarcity there. As soon as we use the word diet, we go into scarcity. It's like, I'm hungry, so it's about tricking the brain to a trade. When we think it's a trade, it's even. What's the trade-off? What am I getting for this to that? It takes 30 days to change a habit. That's all it takes. Consistency, change that habit. Awesome. So for those that are doing this, I'd say change your language. That's the first thing, is change your language.
Number one rule.
Friend. Yeah, absolutely. Be the best friend with yourself. Be kind to yourself. That's tip number 2. Number 3, reach out, get help, discuss it, talk it out, because what happens when we talk it out is we're not holding the emotion in the body. So emotion is energy in motion. And when we can move through the emotions, so something can feel really big, and the longer that we hold it, it feels bigger than us. So if we're moving, so walking is fabulous for if we're stuck, in something. Looping thoughts, stop the looping thoughts, say thank you. That's another tip. So these are all great ways to manage and hack our own self, but it has to start with language. It has to start with the story we're telling ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're setting up the challenge, and as you said, very carefully in response to, we're not going to be using the word diets, because that's not what we're here for. We're here to trade off, as you said, changing the narrative of how we do things. And also bringing in something that you can replace from something. So I'm really excited about the challenge, because instead of me trying to handle everything this year, I'm getting people on board, such as yourself, to help people through the difficult parts of life coaching. And I don't think people realize sometimes they need someone to help them with things like inner chatter and some traumas and the things that are holding them back. And sometimes when I'm working with clients on a PT level, they sometimes actually think, oh, I'm okay, I'm eating okay, I'm doing all this okay, and there's this kind of, I don't know, denial about that I don't need help, I'm fine. But at this in life, everybody needs somebody to look at them from the outside and help them with a few things when it comes to being a coach.
That what you just talked about is there's 2 things that I'll talk to in what you just said. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
So the first thing was what you just said about change. So when we can bring something into our comfort zone, so imagine, circles, when we bring something, so comfort zone is here and change, discomfort is here. When we can bring something into our comfort zone, it's automatically not new anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like going and being the newest employee in the job. It feels really uncomfortable at first, but within a couple of weeks, when you're used to it, it's like, oh, you're just a piece of the furniture. But as soon as somebody else comes in, you no longer have the newbie kind of, mentality and feeling. So if we can bring something into our comfort zone, awesome. And I've got a tool that we can, use to do that. Awesome. There was something else that you said in that, and I've lost the train of thought.
about people being in denial about needing help. As well, like it sometimes people just don't realize, because mothers are so busy being mothers and bosses of the house and stuff like that. And I think it's important with this particular challenge is they're going to be around people that support them and also have an opportunity to speak to someone and help them instead carry the load.
Yeah. So in that, it's likely there's a backstory, and when I call it a story, something that's happened where the person's had to go into what we know in coaching as protective mode. So, and it's the get shit done. So I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. And I'm not going to ask for help because I know, and they've had to be really independent in their life. And so they then do it rather than ask for help, because when help was needed when they were younger, it was denied. They were, belittled, put down, dismissed, whatever it would have been for them. And so they learned this protection mode, this I can do it myself mode, and I'll get it done. And they forget that they need help. They have needs, and it's okay to ask. It's retraining that. It's retraining that, protection into it's okay to ask. And we can sometimes call it pride. And there's a confusion between pride, proud I've done something, and protection, don't look into me. I'm okay. I've got this. I can do this. So it's really finding the light in the crack, because that light in the crack between the two is where we get to pull out the stuff that's holding them back. So I really love what I do.
Oh, so do I. I think I'm getting really excited about this challenge in particular. So what sort of circumstances would lead me to send someone over to you in regards to the challenge that they might be having difficulty in a certain area? What are the sort of people that you can help, and what will be their issues along the way?
Yeah, look, I don't think there's anyone that you can't really help. I think everybody has that potential as long as they're willing. The person, if they're open and say, yes, I'm in for this, I'm down for the change, and I'm prepared to, trust Sue that she's going to get me through this, we can work through anything. The layers that we need to look at, are the deeper layers for the person. So if there's certain patterns coming up, if somebody starts not coming, it's like, okay, what are you feeling uncomfortable about? And let's have a private chat. What is it there? What is the feeling that you're getting? Is it that you're looking through the eyes of comparison? Have you always, felt judged? How do we can have a chat and overcome that? Is it somebody that, doesn't want to share information, feels really private and violated if they're, in a different setting? Is it that shame? So shame, guilt, fear, they're really important factors coming into something like that we address, because shame stops people. So there's shame and there's toxic shame, and it's really important to understand the two. So shame is, I've done something and I feel bad. So Joe, I went out and I had chocolate.
Yeah, I got smashed.
I
got smashed.
Shame. I went and did something and I don't feel good about it. Toxic shame is when something's been done to us. That's where it sits in the trauma. And that's where it's not always identified, because we can block it. But there's always a way for me to find that stuff.
So a classic example is, and I'll tell you a couple of them. One is regular weigh-ins. And when we do weigh-ins, and I'll explain this to you, ladies and gentlemen, the weigh-ins is not about how much you weigh. It's the work that you do during the week that we measure what happened on the scale.
Yeah.
So if you did all that you wanted to do during that week and you worked really hard and there wasn't a movement on the scale, either up or down, it's up to me to find a reason why it did or didn't work, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is, the first instances were very common. People stopped doing their weigh-ins and sending them to me, but they go quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I go, immediately they've fallen off the first wagon.
Yeah.
The second one is they do exactly what we just said. They will literally be so good, so good, so good. And then they will just literally, something will happen and they'll go out and do not only a binge, but they'll binge all night and they'll drink, you know, double their calorie intake in one sitting, go to McDonald's on the way home, have an awful hangover and then stuff up their week. And then again, they go quiet and there's no way in.
Yeah. So that's likely to be the link back to the toxic shame, right? Something happened to them. So the second one, the binge stuff, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is they, you know, there might be, just say, I'll use me as an example, as if I'm in a workplace environment years ago. So something happens, like I'm tracking along really good. All of a sudden, I have a boss that might say something to me, hits one of those trigger points that I've had from my trauma. And then all of a sudden the self-talk starts and I go back into the same pattern of that trauma because I haven't dealt with it. And so the pattern is, I don't care about me. And if I can swear, it's a case of, fuck it, I'm just going to go out and drink. Like, I don't care. I'm back to that. So it's really important to understand that when we hit a trigger, even though we're standing and sitting here in the present, that trigger takes us right back to that moment of that event as if it was happening now.
Yep.
They're the feelings. It even though it's not actually happening, it can feel exactly the same. And because we didn't deal with it then, nobody taught us how to deal with that stuff. And we were taught to shut down everything and not talk, keep it under the carpet, all of that sort of stuff. What happens is we'll have that trigger and then we go to the I don't care factor because we don't know what else to do with it. Yeah. And so when we don't know what to do with it, we'll then turn to the things that numb it because we need to stop it.
Yeah.
So
I guess that also brings it to the pain of regret.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a post I did recently from a friend of mine who's in hospital at the moment, and they're the sort of real things that speak volumes to me. She's in hospital and she's writing this amazing poetry and it's very dark and it's very deep and she's that kind of person. But there's a need to remind people about the pain of regret in comparison to just putting in the hard yards and just, you know, going, oh, if I could just be strong enough to get there, I don't want to regret anything. Is that something that you can work on with people? Is that something like trying to get them to get stronger about their inner chatter and their choices? Absolutely.
So one of the things that we talk about in coaching is what is the legacy that we want to leave? So, you know, we fast pace 5-10 years. What happens in 5 years' time if you are still doing the same thing that you're doing today? Nothing changes. In 5 years, where are you going to be?
Yep.
It's a lot of pain sitting there. And then we go, what's going to happen in 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't changed a thing, what's your relationship going to look like? What's your body going to feel like? What is your bank balance going to look like? Mm-hmm. What is your emotional situation going to look like? Yeah. If you think you're feeling like shit now, 10 times that, 100 times that, with every factor of your life, you know, you're 100 timesing the stuff in, you know, X amount of years. So 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, like the day that you're dying, what are you going to say? Did I live my life?
Yeah, I just don't think people look that far ahead.
No.
I think they're just like, they're going, oh, I think they've all got this. And again, I'll swear, fuck it, we're not going to live that long anyway.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a really, really common thing with people because of the world that they live in and that Facebook world. And there's this analogy that I have is, here's Facebook, right? And this is these people, but they think this is the world. And they don't think this one is real. They think what's going on here is real. So there are people with this image of themselves and how life is in this world, and it's all dark and negative and, you know, but if they pulled themselves away from that situation and looked forward for themselves, and looked ahead with goals and how I'm going to see myself in 20 weeks, how I'm going to see myself in 1 year and in 5 years. And do you think that will help them make better choices?
It depends. You know, yes, in a sense, it can scare people because they're thinking, holy shit, I might actually live to that age. Because when you're in the trauma state, when you've got that stuff going on, that's that fuck it factor, you know, that I was talking about, where we can go and binge drink and all of that. We don't understand that that trauma is driving our bus. We need to be sitting in that bus. So when you talk about Facebook, social media and all of that, and that 1% becoming the 100%, that's because there's that emotional attachment in there that they're not getting in real life, and they don't know how to navigate through the stuff of their own self. So when we can break through those cycles and pull that person out of all what they learnt to be, we start becoming conscious about 5 years old. So anything post that into our teenage years, all of that stuff we've learnt like a sponge. From teenage years, you know, what they call terrible teenagers, it's us finding our edges. Where's the boundaries? Where is okay for me to be? And depending on what mentors, you know, people that we have around us, is going to depend on what we're taught, you know, whether we get none. And people, you know, sometimes parents don't parent because they're scared to parent. There's all sorts of different reasons. But one thought on this is, if we're going to blame someone, we also have to, you know, for the bad, we need to blame them for the good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a brilliant. So, Karen.
Sorry, what I was going to say is, and now we're not responsible for the stuff that happened to us, but we're responsible for our healing.
That's correct. Yeah.
We might feel, we might feel like we're bleeding, but we don't need to bleed on everyone.
No. And I think that's one of the things I learned in life is, you know, there are certain amounts of things that our parents were responsible for, and they were just kids themselves. And once
100%.
I realized that they were just like me, but I had choices. And they didn't. They may not have had choices, and forgiving them for that, but moving forward and learning from your experiences. So I just want to remind the challengers that this whole process that we're going to be going through together, that you do have the support from people like Sue, and we're going to be doing sound healings, and we're going to be doing all those things that support you in this journey, and hopefully creating a community of people that are healing. Like, some of us might be already there, or some of us might find stuff we didn't even realize that was there. You know, but another thing, just before we close up, and I'll let you go, for the challenge, there's going to be an intention ceremony, and then about halfway through, we're going to do a commitment. So we're going to try and catch the people who might be falling a bit behind the 8 ball. But for the intention ceremony, we'll be asking people to set an intention. What sort of things now that they can think about before that ceremony are the things that they should be writing down as an intention? And the sort of things that they really should be thinking about now before we get there.
Awesome. So the good things that we do are really easy to do. The things that we find challenging for our own self are the darker things, the things that we run away from, the things that, you know, we ignore, we, you know, pack away, we don't want to look at. They're the gifts. So when we look at those and ask a question, how can I think differently about that? Then we can start to change our mindset. So that will help with the intention. So somebody like myself had a sugar addiction. I had an accident. I had a sugar addiction. And I had to ask myself, I actually put on 30 kilos. I'm normally 52 kilos. I went up to 84. I'm hovering around 80. I'm so hanging for this challenge. So for somebody like me that had that sugar addiction, I would be asking, what is it that I need to think differently? What is it that I need to do differently? And how can I set that as an intention? So my intention is asking, how can I do this differently? I'm choosing to do something different. I'm committing to this 20 weeks. 20 weeks isn't a long time, you know, and I'm committing to the change for my higher self, for the greater good of my own health and for me to enjoy life. So if we create a goal that's higher in pleasure than looking at the pain of what we're experiencing, of staying the same and what we have right now, we get a great intention, because it's going to become our why. It's going to be inspiring, and we're not going to need the push of momentum, because we're going to get momentum by the inspiration that pulls us from that great intention of why.
Yeah. And I think that at the beginning of the challenge, when people were watching the video, I was setting the attention that everybody was really like, oh my God, that would be so great. I think that's fantastic. This is what I really need now. But then there were some people that have already fallen off the wagon because they're just not quite ready yet. So the people that are going to be at the intention ceremony, for someone like, for me, like you, I don't drink alcohol. So my intention is to just give up the sugar a little bit and the snacks, which, you know, I can't help because people bring biscuits to work and they put them on my desk. It kills me. But again, I'm looking at my future self with my little blurb, as you know, is successful 60 at 60. The other one was fit, fabulous at 50. There has to be a carrot dangling in front of you. And I guess the intention is if I can get rid of this and do this over this month with this many people, it's going to be exciting. This is great because I don't have to do it on my own. And then at the end of it, what I'm going to be is hopefully in 3 more years' time, successful 60 and sexy.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. And that's my intention is, and once I've set that, it's like setting a goal and the intention, and then all of a sudden the doors open.
Yeah.
Whereas before they were closed because you weren't really sure whether or not you should walk through. You haven't made that initial, I want to be there, and that's where I'm going to be. And if I'm meant to be there, the universe will throw some stuff at me and the doors will open. But hey, if doors aren't opening, I'm doing the wrong thing. And usually the doors aren't opening is because you're not ready to commit. You're not ready to give up sugar. You're not ready to give up the alcohol. You're still going, I don't do that. No, I'll give up the challenge for maybe next year.
Yeah. So if we have a goal and we what we call reverse engineer it, so where we are today, and all these are steps. So whatever that end goal is for you at 60, whatever that goal is for whoever's joining the challenge, whatever it is that they're thinking right now that they want to flip, whatever they, got into the challenge, whether it's to lose weight, to, stop drinking, to feel great, to be able to move more, whatever that goal is, keep that and make it bigger at this end. And all these are steps, and just cross off your steps as you go and celebrate. It's really important at all of those milestones, like little milestones along the way, is to celebrate. And that can be putting on your favorite song, and, it can be dancing around the house. Like, really celebrate the self and acknowledge the self. It's the thing that we don't do the most, is acknowledge us for our milestones.
Absolutely. And the great thing about the challenge is we will be having an ending ceremony, whether you make it to the end of the challenge or not, where we all get together and we're going to celebrate the milestones and the things you did achieve. And it's not like everybody's winning, like everyone gets a trophy. It's like people come in at their level and they get to do what they do and what is good for them, and what, and that's the most important thing, that you will get a pat on the back for everything, and we will celebrate those things. And that's really important to people, and also do it as a community. And that's what I'm really excited about right now, is, making sure people set some sort of goal for themselves and be proud of themselves along the way. So let's talk briefly about the tapping that you put up. So there is a post up there, guys, about tapping. And when do people use that tapping, and what for?
So the tapping can be used at any time. So I've got some significant words in there. So what I did when I had a look, I used my script that I normally have, and I thought, what is it that some people are going to be feeling coming into the challenge if they're, giving up different things? So I use those specific words in there as well. So if somebody's feeling a certain emotion that feels like it's intensifying, or they feel like they're about to give up, go in and do that. Go in and do it. You can actually do that tapping for anything. It's around feelings, it's around blockages. And if somebody needs a private one-on-one session, and because they really can't get through, like the person that can't do the weigh-ins, go do the tapping. And if there's something specific, look, if if the people in the challenge want to send me some specific words of what they're feeling, it can be anonymous. It doesn't have to be, showing who it is, but they can certainly send me some words and I can do a tapping. And what we know is, if one person has the problem, there's going to be somebody else that has the problem. It'll always serve other people.
So just stopping you there, on the actual group, you can post anonymously. Did you know that?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So
I did.
What happens is, if you go to do a comment, you can, I think, post anonymously. You don't have to put your name to it. So if anyone out there has a question they feel embarrassed about, just go onto the group. And as you go to do a comment, I think it's up the top, it comes up, says post anonymously. And we can help you out, and just tag Sue or myself or anything in there, and we can help you out with that.
100%. I'm more than willing to come back with, messages. They'll be generic in how they can help. If I think it needs to be private and come off and do a one-on-one through, Messenger, Zoom chat, whatever, then I'll take it to that level. But otherwise, there's a lot of things that one person will be thinking or feeling, and somebody else is going to feel the same.
Yeah, awesome. And just to let you know, guys, that during the challenge, I think the glory about working with these professional people is that I know some of you have challenges with your budgets. And I think what's really important here for me is some of you may not want to do the food, some of you may not want to do the juices, some of you may not want to do this. But if I see that you're having some difficulty with areas that Sue can help, I would rather you funnel your services to Sue and work on those predominantly, because you may have everything else in check. So I think the important thing is to understand that we're all here to help, and we're all here to help each other in business. And I'll be directing people to the professional people where you need the help the most. And if they're up for it, I'm sure that you'd be very happy to help them out.
Awesome. Absolutely. That's what we're here for, to get everybody through. It's not about me personally here. It's about a group achievement and getting people, to the life that they love. And, 20 weeks time, we'll all be there cheering each other on, just like we can on day one.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sue. I really appreciate it. And how do people get in contact with you? Have you got a Facebook page or Instagram?
So I'm on Facebook. I do a lot of stuff from my Facebook Sue Seaby page, and I also have She Time page, but I do everything through Sue Seaby. So find me there, just as it's written up there. Awesome.
Yeah. And quick question, do you do He Time as well?
So I'm glad you asked that. So
the reason why I asked that is because Pivotal was the same. A lot of men used to not come to Pivotal because it had a pretty girl, like this image of a pivoting ballerina with some pink stripes, and the guys would go, no, that's just for girls. And the one thing we did say at some point was we need to say we are Men's Health as well. And since then, the wives bring their husbands and they talk them in and they come in. So
yeah, it actually stands for supporting humans everywhere. She, he,
because there's a he in there. If you take the S, there's a he in there.
Yep, it's she, he, everyone.
Good girl.
Awesome.
I just want to straighten that up for everybody. So guys, it is he as well. I have a good laugh. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing your results at the end of the 20-week challenge, and thank you for being a part of it. And I'm really looking forward to the end product where we all meet and we have a bit of a soiree. The exciting news is today, guys, and I'll just break it to you. I just had a meeting with a young lady called Rachel Foreman, who will be joining the group this week. And I'm having a meeting tomorrow. They are involved in what's called Low and No. Low and No is a whole range of drinks, wines, gins and things like that are completely non-alcoholic, fully herbal. They are full of ashwagandha and all these sort of relaxants and give you a bit of a dopamine hit. So I'm hoping that we can have a closing event and you guys can try some of these new drinks, so that the habits that you form around socializing, that we can give up this, but we've got this for you, and you can go to an event with your bottles, and you can be a part of everybody else's socializing with these amazing drinks. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So Sue, thank you so much from He Time, And anyone that wants to drop a comment below, you can do it anonymously. As I said, just start making a comment and it'll say post anonymously. You're more than welcome to do that as well. And Sue will keep an eye on that for you. And she can contact you directly from behind the scenes. Thank you so much again, Sue.
Absolutely. Tag me in the post and I'm there. All righty. Thanks so much.